starting here. Got all these goofy windows. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lookout. Today is the 2nd of September. Very active day in Northern California for fires. Big lightning storm going through. All kinds of action. A lot of fires started down around Sonora all the way up to Highway 50. Some lightning strikes here in Butte County over the last couple hours. And active fire up in Mount Shasta. Active fires happening on the Klamath. And but we have some previously scheduled programming here we want to use. We're going to do it. We'll catch up on the active fires after our irregularly programmed schedule. But we got Jamie Allen here. And Jamie Allen is an OG wildlife biologist. And he's living on the Klamath up in Sayad Valley, so he's got the blue fire burning in his backyard. Blue fire is reburning an area that burned when we were both younger men, about 11 years ago, and a lot of good kind of backstory here. So we're gonna jump him into the screen here. We're using Microsoft Teams, so let's see if we get us all in here. Hey, Jamie Allen.
Things working okay on your side?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, so welcome to the Lookout, Jamie. Glad we could get together. You know, Jamie and I were talking over the last few days because he lives in Sayad, and oftentimes when we get a fire burning in the Klamath, Jamie will send me maps. He's been working in the field as a resource kind of biologist for, well, how long? You want to tell us a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, thanks, Zeke. First, I want to start off, man. Super honored. Really appreciate the invite to talk about the Middle Klamath and my backyard. Yeah, it's Sayad Valley is my hometown. Grew up playing around in the woods out here and having a lot of fun. Was blessed to have a family that moved out into the sticks of the Middle Klamath back in the mid-70s, and with that took the love of natural resources, biology, and others along with it, and ran with it, and been doing it for my professional career outside of hobby, and just having fun in the woods as a kid. And professionally out here, I've been started off back as a teenager doing trail crew work. Worked for the YCC program, and did trail crew work up in the Marbles, adventured on over into the Trinity Alps wilderness. Fun little stint out there. Worked with your brother in the Marbles over there.
Was that how you guys met on Pat Garahan's trail crew?
We met on Pat's trail crew probably somewhere circa 96, 7-ish or something like that, and maybe 98-ish. But
yeah, I went out there. I had an office job in '98, I think, and I spent the whole summer sitting in an air-conditioned, cold-ass office. And then I bought this big, crazy, heavy, brand-new pair of, like, the heaviest Danner boots you could buy. Because my little brother was working on trail crew, and he had some Danners that were lighter. I'm like, well, I'm the big brother. I'm going to get the bigger ones. And then I went out for his birthday, and we hiked way up to, like, from Haypress Meadow. And it just killed me. I was carrying a frying pan, and, like, my little brother's, like, just been working on trail crew all summer. I've been sitting on my ass and like, yeah, it just destroyed me. The new boots, everything. All right, so yes,
We had a lot of fun back there, and it just to carry on though. But after that stint on doing trail crew work out there, Humboldt State University, and studied natural resources and biology. Once I got through with education at Humboldt State University, came out, and I'm on my 18th year out as a professional biologist. I work for Northern California Resource Center, senior wildlife biologist and director of natural resources. And we do environmental consultation and resource management. And lucky enough to be employed here on the Middle Klamath, playing around and doing some pretty amazing scientific data collection. So yeah, Zeke, really appreciate being on the show and able to share some of the experiences and information I've learned both as a kid, but also in the scientific professional world out there. So
all
thanks,
right,
man.
see if we
Appreciate
can.
it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna see if we can jump your picture into my Google Earth here, and so it's not just me hogging the whole screen here. Blow you up. Oh, I'm just trying to figure out how to drive this thing. I think we can. I got an idea. It's gonna work. Damn you, Microsoft. Give me 1 second here. This is stuff that we could have done before. And I'm just gonna start off with the map with me talking, with you talking, and I'll drive, and then we'll pull up your picture when we want to remember what you look like. Okay, so we're you seeing the screen now of Google Earth? All right, so we're gonna just take the big picture here real quick and show people like where you are on the landscape here. We're like, once again, we're between Wairika and Eureka, northwestern California, kind of between Syed and Happy Camp. Can you tell us like what we're seeing here with these big? We're going to talk about the blue fire, which is like right here by your house. Can you tell us like what we're seeing on here with like these green lines and these like different colors of red and yellow and green?
Absolutely. So let's just start big picture here. So the green lines are delineating late successional reserve, which is uh, a land management area, and it is directly in response to U.S. Fish and Wildlife back in the early ESA species listings out there. This was the Forest Service's answer to critical habitat for northern spotted owl and other endangered species out there to promote a healthy forest for sensitive animals to reside and hopefully prosper and flourish, and set aside more for reproductive success. And a well-intentioned and that's what the green lines are delineating. Beautiful areas, a lot of gorgeous areas in that have since, unfortunately, a lot of the LSR out there has burned, along with so many other watersheds here in the Middle Klamath. And what that gets right directly down to is we're looking at a fire severity map here, and that's the color coding that we're looking at here. The red and the darker red that we see is a high severity fire, which equates to a high mortality rate out there, aka we're looking at like 75 to 100% mortality death
Okay,
of
so
all vegetation.
you're saying that the green areas, like areas that were like being managed for like old growth, and they're trying to like take special care of them, so they would like survive as like old growth, but then they all burn like crazy 11 years ago, like that, a big patch of it burns super hot.
in this particular unit, absolutely, it burned really hot in the 2014 Happy Camp complex. And pardon, let me mute this thing over here. It burned really hot in the 2014 Happy Camp complex. Uh, Beautiful stands of large timber out there. Timber ranging anywhere from 2 feet in diameter up to 7+ feet in some areas. What we're seeing remaining out there in the green and darker green is low to moderate severity fire that probably still has some of those nice bigger timber and trees in there, but the higher severity out there was pretty much a crown fire and ended up really burning hot and leaving a lot of dead wood on the landscape is what it comes down to.
Okay. So now that we've got this kind of, I was still trying to make a little video here to pop you up in our picture. So zoom in here on this blue fire, and so we've got this fire now that is, so you're under evacuation orders in Syed. Can you talk a little bit about this blue fire and kind of how it's progressed within the different colors of burn here?
It certainly can. Yeah. So yeah, to confirm, we're under evacuation order up in Syed Valley proper. With that, the blue fire just to the south of us, it started initially naturally with lightning strikes and snag patches and heavy down fuels out there. I can't remember the exact date, but it's been going for at least a week, if not a little bit longer. And it's been spreading through heavy fuels that were large trees that were either on a treated landscape through some post-fire salvage and or left alone for some down in woody debris on purpose in some areas that they just couldn't get to due to topography and others. But it's chewing through a lot of really large timber that's been seasoned over 11 summers here in the Middle Klamath, and a lot of it's dried out. And we're seeing, imagine, a bonfire when you throw on just a big chunk of firewood that's not split. If you had a big old chunk, it's hot. So if you can imagine large trees that are full trees that span that landscape right now, that's what's on fire for a lot of that red area if it wasn't salvaged or treated.
So when we zoom in here and you see all these big, like, standing dead trees and trees on the ground, you're saying that, like, there's just like this long-term super hot burn happening in here?
Yeah, the heat sink's really getting into what we soil scientists call the A horizon out there, and potentially causing some sterilization of the A horizon and changing some of the dynamics on the landscape out there about how and what's going to ultimately regrow or be capable of regrowing. However, there is some beneficial aspects to this fire out there, where it's taking out a lot of the brush underneath and also softening up some of those large diameter trees that may or may not have some moisture still on the inside of it.
Can you talk about
And
that, about the idea of softening, like how fire would soften up down logs?
yeah, absolutely. So if we get a crown fire out there and it goes in and we've got high mortality out there, the trees are left standing as snags. They'll season, they'll crisp, for better words, fire hardened. There's a great picture of it right there. And with that, bugs will initially start to come in here and start to decompose some of these standing trees out there. Some of these trees make an excellent wildlife tree. Wildlife will make homes in them, etc. Over the years, though, they start to fall over, and with the deeply lignified trees out there, such as Doug firs, some of the harder softwoods, along with the hardwoods, when fire comes back through and it's on the ground, it'll actually start to that's a great picture of that tree on the, I guess it would be on the right hand side where it's partially burned.
Uh-huh.
That carbon that that's been burned, that's being shown as charcoal on the outside of that tree, that is a great start for decomposition of that tree out there on the landscape. The bugs are going to get into it. We're going to get some fungi that's going to start to get into it, and when it gets on the ground, and it starts to decompose out there. So this is
So
really the start of trees recycling back into the earth.
can you talk
So
about
that
what's lignified mean? You said that you've got lignified snags. So like is like Doug fir especially, is that what you talk about when you talk about like a hard snag?
Yeah, so lignified trees. There's actually a a source inside trees that's called lignin, and it's a cellular structure that creates, for better words, harder trees and harder timber, and will have uh, it'll make for a harder wood, and it makes for better saw logs, makes for also better firewood. It makes for a more resilient and harder tree out there.
Okay. And so so in general, do hardwoods have more lignin like a oak? Does it have like so oak, are hardwood trees like oaks and the harder conifers like Doug fir, they're the ones that are more likely to be hard and last longer in as standing dead?
Conifers in general are going to uh, be your more target species out there for heavily lignified. However, the hardwoods in general have their own cellular structure that is more dense. So it's kind of a mixed bag out there in general.
Okay. So when we're looking at this kind of post-fire landscape, you pulled up this photo of this is the PCT bridge over the, is that it? The PCT bridge over the Grider Creek?
That's kind of semi-famous local bridge that goes from the Grider Creek campground. And then that is the Pacific Crest Trail as it enters Sayad Valley at Grider Creek Campground. And this is post-fire out there, probably with looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of, maybe 5 years regrowth on some of the basal sprouting trees out there, which are the hardwoods that send off some suckers, if you will. And
Okay.
that's looking right off the bridge.
So this is like your post-fire. So a lot of what's burning in the blue fire right now looks like this.
Correct.
Okay. Um, so we're talking a lot on here about kind of reburn and like when, how soon it's good to have fire back into an area. How, we've talked quite a bit on here about like the Dixie fire and how it reburned the 2007 Moonlight fire and how that 14-year interval was too long. And basically like we just had this crazy high severity kind of moonscape post Dixie in parts of Moonlight that had grown back in like super thick ceanothus and stuff like that. So I wanted to show a couple videos real quick that a buddy of mine sent me when he was working on, I think McKinney, last year, no, 2 years ago, whatever it was. When was McKinney? 22?
Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago now. That sounds about right. They're all kind of mixing together, but the McKinney was quite significant.
All right, so here's my buddy Chris Sprague. There she goes. Don't be a hero. So I like how like I think all of us kind of in the business we're in, we're always looking for clues, right? We're always looking at like what's happening in the background. Here's an old like photo of a train from the 1920s. It's like, well, I don't care about the steam power. I care about like the tons per acre of slash left over from the first century of logging, And so when people send me stuff like this, I'm like, okay, what are we seeing here? We're seeing a 2014 burn. We're seeing like the brush is burning. Like I'm always curious, like, okay, what 2014 burn to there's like 9 years of regrowth in there, and so like all the private timberland got salvaged and herbicided and didn't really burn, and then the public land is reburning. I'm always curious, like, okay, well, what is the right interval to get fire back into these landscapes, based on like how hot it burned last time. Uh, let's pull up another one here. Here goes that drainage. I think this is the, yes, it might be the same video. Don't be a hero. See a lot of weeds in there, right? See like broom and stuff. But so is it safe to say that like portions of the blue fire are burning like this in this like around 10-year-old burn?
Yeah, absolutely. That looks very similar out there. A lot of brush regrowth out there, a lot of weeds, like you're saying, and that's causing that's some good soft fuels out there to get some of the larger DBH trees out there and get them going on fire, like you can see in that picture right there. With that, though, some of the benefits that we're seeing out there is that this brush that's nestled in with these larger DBH trees out there is getting burned and cleaning up out there. So it'll be really interesting to see what it looks like post fire of the blue and see how it cleaned up and see if there's still what we call bones out there spread throughout the landscape, and the bones would be the trees that haven't burnt all the way through, that are starting that first decompositional phase out there. um, I think I might have just made up a word, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Decompositional.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing here is like, okay, there's like in this burn, there's living Doug fir, there's living ponderosa pine, and these trees are gonna survive this fire that we're seeing. And so you've got seed source. So oftentimes I think, post fire, we want to come in here, we want to salvage, we want to clean this up, and replant it if it's commercial timberland. But on the flip side, I think if it burns again in a fire like this, it cleans up all the dead and down for you, and then you still got seed source to seed into this and naturally revegetate it. And that the fire is kind of a gatekeeper for killing the trees. Like, okay, 10 years in, there's some seedlings that got established well enough that they're going to survive this, and the ones that weren't kind of genetically superior are going to get killed. So I think I'm always curious, like, well, what's that ideal time interval in different types? Like, well, maybe it's different in the Sierra Nevada than it is in tan oak or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really good case study right here to see post blue, and we're going to get some great data sets out of this to see what it looks like after 2014 burn, after a high severity area, and treatments with some baseline non-treatment areas too, to see what's left on the landscape and what's been cleaned up. So cool stuff. And I do want to plug out there right now, Sayad Valley is safe at this point in time. We are under order evac, but Sayad locals out there, we're doing good. Definitely follow what folks are saying out there from the sheriff's office, etc. But it's moving slow and creeping and crawling where it needs to go to. It's more of a deep heat sink sort of fire than if we were to be looking at a crown fire that's spreading wildly and fast.
You want to talk a little about, like, when you talk about a deep heat sink? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So a deep heat sink would be where the fuels are seasoned. This is kind of the perfect storm here in the blue, where we've got some larger diameter fuels that are seasoned, and trees. We're just to call them trees out there, and they fall over. When they fall over, they're going to burn, and the earth underneath it is going to absorb the heat from that tree, and basically like a big bonfire. So it's going to heat sink into that soil, and it's really going to cause some interesting effects, and we'll see how severe of an effect we get out there with some potential sterilization of the soils, and also some soil turning it into hydrophobic soils, which means that the water is not readily available to bond or bind with the soil structure out there, and can cause some pretty gnarly runoff and some landslides out there. So to be seen post blue.
Yeah,
Looking
so
forward to seeing the
yeah,
fire effects.
I thought I'd bring up those photos you had of. We have some crazy photos of Grider Creek post the last fire.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea of like, okay, what post fire sediment. Here's this for scale. This is a man out here, 6 foot tall person, and so this all came down right after the 2014 fire.
Yeah, this is No Name Creek
Okay.
that pours right into Grider Creek over there off the backside of Blue Mountain on the west side. So yeah, this is some of the soil instability that's washed out. Yeah, and that's another great photo right there of what we could be seeing is a lot of that silt and gravel start to fill in some of the larger holes on the creeks out there. Grider Creek got filled in pretty substantially with gravels and some water that's looking like that out there. So takes a lot of time and a lot of hydraulic pressure to get that back to normal, or sometimes it'll just restructure and rebuild. So
I,
watershed change for sure.
I had a question on just talking biology. Here in Chico, we had the park fire last year that was super hot, burned like the whole upper watershed of Chico Creek. And this year, for the first time since I've ever lived here, we've got E. coli, like a really bad E. coli in the creek
Oh, interesting.
that sent some kids to like the ICU. And so the creek is closed to swimming all summer, which makes it feel like we're living in, freaking Bakersfield or something. Um, have you heard before of like, and some people think that that might be due to the fire, like a response to the like increased water temperature or just completely changed conditions in the upper watershed. Have you heard of stuff like that, of like increased bacteria in the water after a fire?
Yeah, that's a really interesting. That's an interesting outcome on Butte Creek out there in general. I don't really know the fundamentals of E. coli in particular of what it likes the best, but prime biotic conditions out there are generally in between right around 68 degrees, 68 to 72 degrees for fungi and or also other algal blooms as well as bacterial blooms out there. So when we start to see some of our natural cold running creeks out there that are in the 50 to 60 degree range, et cetera, through the summertime, and then canopy cover gets removed and we start to see the heat come into play through solarization, aka the sun's hitting it, we start to see the watershed warm up, and that's very plausible that that could have been one of the
Like it triggered
reasons
us
how
to
the
like it would cross the threshold. Maybe the creek was like 66 degrees before the fire, and then now that it's warmer now and there's more, the bacteria can do better.
very well could have been. There also could have been a point source of E. coli that was released
Mhm.
somehow out there. That's an interesting one. I don't know the exact answer, but the overall um, the overall trend in general is when you warm up a cold watershed, you're going to end up getting more algal blooms. You're going to end up getting more bacterium. You're going to end up getting more microbes, and whether they're beneficial or harmful to other aquatics out there is to be determined depending on what variety they are. Sometimes it is beneficial because it actually ends up being a food source for some of the aquatics out there,
Okay, so
but
you're
not
talking a little
always.
bit about, you're talking just before we get off of the colored map here. I want to talk a little bit about patch size. So we were looking at the beaver fire just now, reburning, and that fire had a lot of hot burn in it, but also in that image that we were looking at, you could see there were still standing trees. And we were talking about like, okay, if you have a hot reburn, but you've got a seed source that um, it can kind of help reestablish your forest. I know that over here on the Dixie, where we've got these like enormous patch sizes, there's this worry that, hey, if you have a patch that's bigger than 100 acres, you're not going to have seed from your conifers to reestablish conifers naturally, and that you need to plant that. What are your thoughts kind of on like, so post fire, like post 2014 fires, some of this land got salvage logged, some of it got replanted. Like, can you talk a bit about what you as a biologist see like needing to happen, what you would have wanted to see kind of be the perfect outcome, like if you were, the head of the Forest Service and you had this, 130,000 acre fire that burned in 2014, and you had this kind of patchwork severity, what would you have wanted to spend more resources on?
Well, honestly, I think they did a pretty good job with keeping in mind or taking into consideration. By they, I mean the land managers in general, and there was a lot of collaboration that went on in 2014 um, planning process out there. But leaving of seed trees, particularly on the ridge tops out there, I think is an extremely valuable resource for natural regeneration out there. A lot of this area, especially in Syad, is in a transition zone of more of a coastal influence into a high desert. You start to go 5 miles east, you start to get into more high desert. You start to go 5 miles west towards Happy Camp, you start to get into more tan oaks and some of the other plants that you start to see with the coastal influence, etc., trees, etc.
So you get the
So,
desert cat coming down river, like
yeah,
it's kind of like a
and
rain shadow, huh? Like you got the Marble Mountain high country here,
absolutely.
and then you got the east. So I think that's an interesting thing for people who haven't spent time around here is that like I spent some time in Etna, and then I drove like over to Gazelle to Grenada or something, and like there's this divide here, and there's these high mountains here. And over here, I felt like I was dropping into like Hurlong or Janesville or Susanville, with this kind of scrub oak desert vegetation, and the same like with Scott Valley being like it has this real east side feeling, even though you're still like between I-5 and the coast. You feel like you're kind of more out in the desert.
Yeah, absolutely. So, now to get back to your question out there, Zeke, what would I have done differently out there? That's a really tough question because we're just now seeing a reburn on this landscape, and I think we'll gain more data sets and knowledge based on the blue fire out there with a test study of where the salvaged areas, is that going to have better soil? Is it not? Some of the best things that we can do is leave some natural regeneration trees. Uh, and I think there's a good happy medium out there. If it gets all the way down to site prep plant and take everything, that's going to really harm the landscape. And also it's hard to get back and get into those plantations. But if we take some of the dead and down timber out of there, I think it needs to happen in order to not have these huge heat sinked fires, and not calling the blue a huge fire by any means. But if it continues to spread in these high severity areas, this could potentially sterilize a lot of the soils in this watershed that could create some large catastrophic landslides that could really muck up creeks and others. And it's just science, it's facts out there, and we're following the case study with it, collecting the data, keeping our eyes on it, and got to find that happy medium if there were to be one out there. So
So
I
what? So
don't know
what?
exactly where it lives.
So what happened? Can you tell us? Can you all walk us through like what happened after the 2014 fire? Like I know that there was kind of argument about like salvage and what to do, and I know that you worked on the team that kind of did the planning for kind of how to approach restoration on the landscape. Can you talk a little bit, like just like looking at this map of like where certain things happened post fire and what the prescriptions were and what you guys were trying to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this right now, what was achieved out there correctly, like I said, is the natural regen, especially of particular types of trees out there, sugar pine being probably one of the best. And that's what I was getting at with the high desert versus the coastal belt out there. a lot of this area around here, this being north face, would have had a lot more conifers on it naturally, historically out there. But also with that, there would have been a lot more naturalized oak and oak component and sugar pine component in there. And that is what we saw to further to the east out there, in general. And there were some rather large salvage units out there that were around Slinkard Peak area. It'll be interesting to see if the fire passes over and through there to see, is that going to slow? Is that going to slow the blue fire and be a beneficial aspect of post treatment out there? Is it going to burn up the seedlings in the replant? At this moment, I don't really know. There was definitely some. I was not the decision maker on this, nor do I claim to be on it, but it was interesting to be part of the teams out there to assess the data, take in what we saw out there, bring it back, and try to brainstorm what could be a best case scenario out there for some areas. And ultimately, now we're seeing a repeat with the blue fire out there, and we'll get more data out of it.
Pull up the harvest history while we're talking. So for salvaging there, how did that salvage logging like affect the fuel loading? That was like, what were the conditions like after the project was done, as far as like logged areas versus areas that hadn't been entered?
You know, one interesting byproduct of salvage out there in general is most of the timber that's extracted is mill logs or saw logs. And with that, we're looking at key species, Doug fir probably being one of your number ones out there. Yeah, I think it's probably also market driven, but also how long is it on the stump? If we're looking at ponderosa pine, it devalues within months, a year, 2 years. It's gone. It's got white speck. It's not a millable resource out there. So to actually get some saw logs out of there, that's where Doug fir reigns king on what was pulled out of a lot of these units out there. That does leave behind a lot of hardwoods that aren't necessarily used for saw logs. Some of that's lopped and scattered. Some of it's dozer piled. Some of those dozer piles are ignited. Some of them are still on the landscape, but a lot of them have been dealt with and treated. So yeah, there's definitely a byproduct of salvage out there that can be a little bit messy. And if we get fire in some of those areas, it could be more of a jackpot burn.
Okay, so I'm looking here at some of the data. So these kind of pink colors are places that got salvage logged after 2014.
Yep.
Looks like.
Yep.
And so like between Syad and the fire right now, you got a big chunk that got salvaged. Kathleen is helicopter salvaged.
That was Caroline Creek, up in the upper realms of that. Yeah.
So is that whole tree then, or are they like falling and limbing them and then pulling just the boles out when they are doing the helicopter salvage?
I can't remember if it was a helicopter extraction or not on that one, or if there was yarder or both.
This unit says helicopter.
It is heli. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I like, so the reason we're going there, the reason I'm bringing that up right now on the broadcast is just that like there's a lot of argument when we talk about like logging and whether or not logging is good for fire or bad for fire. It's all about the details, and the little details end up mattering. And oftentimes, traditionally salvage logging was like cut the big logs down, cut off all the branches, hoist the logs out with a helicopter, and leave all the branches in the woods. And so if you're interested in like reducing fire hazard, you might want to like pull the whole log out with the branches still attached, so you can like lop all those branches at a landing where you can chip it and either sell the chips or just not have all that stuff laying in the woods. But I think that's one of the reasons we like talking to people like Jamie is that like, hey, details matter. Before we just go say you should log it all and you won't have a fire problem. It's like, well, yeah, let's log it this way, but let's make sure that we pay attention to the details that really affect future fire hazards, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely, Zeke. Leaving a lot of logging slash out there can turn around and create a lot of fuel loading out there in general. And I can't remember exactly if they pulled the whole bowl out of there with limbs on it or not. It's been a little while out there, but what we did see earlier this year is there was a smaller fire in that watershed called the Caroline Fire. Um, I think it was extremely beneficial, and it could have actually been let go to do some really positive work in getting cleaning up some of that minor slash if it was left in there, as well as backing down and through that bowl to take out some of that regrowth slash in there. And yeah, it definitely would have taken
Yeah,
out
and
some
so
of those
we're and
trees,
yeah, if you're
but
and
that's beneficial.
if you were watching the channel earlier this year, we were talking about like why does Forest Service brag about putting out all these early season lightning fires? Um, and I think this is Jamie brought this up when we were kind of prepping. Is just that like um, if you can burn something up early in the season when it's not September and dry, the peak dryness for the season and going into wind season, right next to a town, that might be, people get nervous when you want to burn right into a town, but I think getting people where they know the difference between June fire behavior versus September fire behavior. We have our fires like the Slater in September that burn our towns down, and in June, oftentimes we don't see that. We see stuff like what happened on the Orleans, on the Butler fire, where the fire backed down for 2 weeks and really got good effects.
Absolutely, that was a really good opportunity in their early season. With that, I think we're probably going to be facing that with the blue in there. Seems like strategy wise, they're trying to keep it out of there and keep it out of Syed, and we're looking pretty good so far. So, yeah, hats off to the firefighters out there. Uh, Thank you guys so much for helping out and help protect Syed and our resources out there. And really looking forward to seeing as the blue progresses or is put out there. We'll see what the overall outcome is. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think,
Zeke, I
yeah, I think
appreciate it.
I was talking to people the other night on here just about how like if you only view fire as this destructive force on the landscape, like that you and I wouldn't be able to survive what we've been through with fire, right? Like that you just like you
Absolutely.
couldn't live on this planet, on this fire planet, with this, with this feeling that it's only going to be destructive, and that the time that we've spent with it and living in landscapes that burn, if you don't take on this sense of wonder and sense of mystery, like wow, I really didn't expect that to happen, you know, that maybe it's a coping mechanism for all of us who've like seen the landscapes we know and love change so much, but that unless we keep this sense of curiosity, I love that you say like, hey, this is a great opportunity, we're going to learn a lot, we're going to collect data, I feel like that's the only way we can really move forward, and hopefully we can keep sharing that stuff with people.
Absolutely. I got to learn from practices, learn from suppression efforts, learn from getting naturalized fire back on the landscape out there, getting more underburns out there at the right time, and also learning from mistakes. It's an ongoing learning process out there, and the Klamath is a huge laboratory that we get to see this on a yearly out there. Um, Not saying it's a fun laboratory to experience every year. It's quite
Yeah, right.
painful at
Yeah,
times
yeah.
out there.
Like your family's evacuated right now, or are you guys all
They
together?
are. Yeah, wife and kids are up in evac. I'm holding down the fort, and but yeah, it's fascinating. I'll leave it at that. It's just when you think you've got a really good grasp on something, something will absolutely humble you, and it'll be
Mhm.
like, oh man, that's gonna be terrible, and it's not. It actually comes back, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. That's just change, and I think that's the biggest take home out here is that we're witnessing change. We've had overstocked forests for the last 200, 250 years, or incrementally growing. And with that, the fire's coming in. The big red button is being hit, and we're seeing systematically each watershed go out there. The interesting thing about the blue fire, we talk about this around bonfires, hanging out, maybe having a good time with your friends is, where's the, it's almost like Russian roulette. It's like, all right, guys, where's the next big Klamath fire going to be? And you can almost guarantee, where's the trees? Where's the green trees? Where's the big
Right.
green trees? Okay,
what haven't we burned yet?
that's going to be the next big fire.
Well, yeah, and I feel
Um,
like, as we're like talking about like using more fire on the landscape and like getting to the point where like that happens, is that these things take a long time, and like 30 years from now the landscape is probably going to look way different. Like for our kids, if they end up being land managers, the landscape that
yep.
they're going to be managing late in their careers is going to be so different. We can't even imagine it. But they'll have different opportunities to put fire on the ground in a whole different landscape that's fragmented by whatever happens between now and then.
In an ever-changing landscape. I appreciate it, Z.
Cool, Jamie. Well, I'm gonna kick you off, and then I'm gonna kind of do a California lightning bus tour. I super appreciate being in touch with you, man, and keep it all up. Love you, dude. Keep it together.
Yeah.
Good luck with your fire.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thanks,
see ya.
man.
Bye.
Take care.
All right, people. I'm gonna play a little music and kind of get re established here into the next phase, which is catching up on what happened. I've been talking to Jamie for a while, and I have no idea what's happening out there in the world. So I have a little interlude here. I need to find some eye candy for you guys to watch here while I'm doing this, though. Let's just go to our latest raw video. Something or other here. I'm so confused, people. Just gonna have to watch me while I chat my computer. I do want to dance, man. I love this song. Love this song. All right. Yeah, people. Okay, we're going to jump in here to talk about the cedar fire. Cedar fire is burning in Post Mountain, aka Trinity Pines. And I've gotten myself in trouble with some folks that live out there for saying mean things about their community. And insinuating that they have bad fire karma. And that's an asshole thing to say. I own it. I'm an asshole, but I hate this place. I feel bad for people who live there who have to deal with the fire, but this is one of the places in Northern California that just makes me sick, makes me unhappy. Every time I see it, I can't believe that I'm seeing what I'm seeing at Post Mountain. So I'm doubling down on saying that that this place bums me out. I'm sorry if you live there. I hope your house doesn't burn down. But let's look at Post Mountain, and I'll explain why I'm such a asshole about this. Okay, I just think it's an interesting spot to share, and yeah, I'm an asshole. Check it out. Here's Hayfork. Here's Highway 36. Here's Post Mountain. Here's Highway 36, Highway 3. And I've been looking at this place on, I don't know anyone who lives out here. Someone asked me, oh, you probably don't know anyone who lives out here. It's like, no, I don't. It's true. But this Post Mountain here got subdivided back in the, who knows when. It's kind of, it's an interesting piece of ground. It's just, someone had this private timberland and they logged it, and then they subdivided it. And then when medical marijuana got legalized, Trinity County was the epicenter. And so if you zoom in here on these little like teeny clear cuts everywhere, there's like, this is all like massive scale cannabis farming. This whole place, and it's huge, just goes on and on and on and on. It's really wild. It's so crazy. I know a kid that he was a young logger, and he just he ran around out here and clear cut all these little patches. Felt bad about it. He said it's the worst work he'd ever done, because they just like clear cut this forest and bulldoze it off to the side, and terrace it, and it's a crazy place. It's like, it is really kind of a strange vision of land use. I was thinking today that Post Mountain like makes, like when you look at the conditions, environmental conditions out here, it makes like the worst timberland management you've ever seen look like freaking British garden. So anyway, this is Post Mountain, crazy spot in the landscape, and yeah, I'm a judgy mother, and I felt like for a long time that this place had negative fire karma. That doesn't mean I want it all to burn down, but when I say negative fire karma, what I mean is, like, if you look at this landscape and you look at the rivers here, we know that fire moves uphill and up south-facing slopes, up kind of, these are our fire-prone landscapes. You look at some of the biggest fires we've had in kind of Northern California history, they run up canyon, up south-facing slopes. And so you see this typical pattern in a lot of places where land got logged big time back in the day. And then it got subdivided and kind of sold off, especially in these rural counties like Plumas and Trinity. It got sold off with no real thought to fire hazard, fire safety, anything else. So when I say this place has got bad fire karma, I mean, one, I think that there's really bad karma from just completely kind of devastating the landscape to grow a drug, and all the kind of negative karma associated with producing drugs and selling them to people. And I've got kind of personal baggage with marijuana. I think a lot of us do with addiction in my friends and family. That marijuana has been a very negative influence in my life and in the lives of many people I know. And so, yeah, I got like zero, I just don't like it. I don't like, and so, yeah, it makes me a judgy mother to be like, looking at all this, I just see this as being like the worst shit, man. It's terrible. I don't like it. And, yeah, sometimes I'm judgy, sometimes I'm an asshole, but that's my opinion. And so when I say negative fire karma, I just mean that, like, hey, you're on this kind of super fire prone landscape. south facing, up canyon flow, um, highly manipulated. A lot of fuel's been just left and chopped down, and a lot of people kind of came out here and did their thing and left when the market turned or whatever else. It's just it's heavy. It's freaking heavy. Anyway, it's probably not the best time to pick on this community because they got a forest fire going. But that's if you see me, that's me explaining why I've always just looked at this and been really upset by the combination of things I don't like all coming together in one place. And so that's Post Mountain. And so to the fire itself, it started off kind of mid-afternoon. I don't know how it started, but it's been churning and burning, and kind of like the other fires in California today. There's a lot of kind of chaos going on with the weather today all across the state. And so this fire, and that makes fires hard to fight. Another thing I don't like about something like this is that wildland firefighters are not structure firefighters. They don't carry SCBAs. They don't have breathing protection. And so if you go out on a landscape that's full of old PVC drip tubing and shitty old greenhouse plastic and all this other stuff, and you're expecting people to come out there and save your fire-prone community, and they're forced to breathe cancer-causing plastic, like, I mean, F that. Like, that's why would, yeah. And I know people have done a lot of work to clean up the mess and that blah blah blah. Everyone's got a reason that they live somewhere, and I'm an asshole for sure. But fuck that, man. The smoke, burning plastic, wildland firefighting, hot day, wind all over the place. People expect firefighters to achieve like completely insane things. Worst possible location on the landscape, hottest day of the year, critical energy release components, limited on resources because there's fires everywhere else, and then it's really difficult for firefighters to operate. And then you got to deal with like, wonder if you're gonna get shot at driving up here like to do fuels prevention work, everything else. So yeah, sorry if you lived out there, that if I'm being unsympathetic. But I'm unsympathetic a lot about places that people I feel like shouldn't be living unless they can take care of the fuels. So don't think I'm just picking on you because you grow ganja, but it doesn't help me. It doesn't help my sympathy either. Anyway, on a lighter note, there isn't one. But on a lighter note, fire burning up here by Mount Shasta today. It proved me wrong, which I always like. I thought that this fire was gonna get strong south winds through the day and get established in the kind of North Fork of Castle Creek and burn up and over the top. And it didn't happen. Kind of got some moisture that came in. We had a really wild day for weather here in California today. And just lots of really weird stuff happened. Okay, so let's talk about the weather a bit because this is a really dynamic day. And I'm not always gonna. I try to apologize if I'm out of line, and I'm not gonna apologize sometimes for having strong feelings about my ethics, the things that are important to me. One of my strong ethics is don't frickin' trash the world, and I'll be preachy sometimes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Back to the big picture here. So interesting thing happened today. This is let's come in a little closer. Let's come in. So here we got this low, and we've talked a lot about how circulation happens around a low pressure system. So Today we've got this low, and what it's doing is it's spinning. Here's our low, and then we know that like air kind of circulates into a low like this, and so this moisture is kind of ahead of this front, has come up through the state, and you see that through the course of the day we had this kind of really weird kind of daytime thunderstorm outbreak that kind of, you watch this kind of water vapor move up through kind of along the kind of edge of the valley, and it gets that lift kind of out of the rising air at the base of the mountains, and that basically created these kind of perfect conditions for thunderstorms to kind of run right up the edge of the Sacramento Valley through today. And that created a lot of drama with convection, which gave us lightning. And so another way of looking at this is the storm moved very quickly. Like this is kind of, let's go back a little earlier in the day. So here it comes, some moisture boiling up through. Here's Chico right about here. Sunrise. You see the Garnet Fire. And then the trailing end went through here at like just after noon, right? And after that, it got super hot in Chico. It went, from being a little shady and cool this morning to being like 95 degrees in the sun as soon as that cleared us. So here, sunrise, storm system moves up through the state, and bam, this is the trailing end of it. You got your low out here, and it kind of ran out of moisture to bring up. And then we got a little more firing here in the afternoon, and we got some thunder and lightning up through Butte County, and maybe a few little grass fires out of it. But if you look at this black down here, that is what we're seeing as a result is that's all after the sun goes down. We're seeing fires, fire, it's like pretty big ones. Some of them are burning in kind of like Mariposa County and Calaveras County, kind of front country, but significant fires. And so what that means for us in Northern California is less resource availability. So Post Mountain tomorrow, like if you got fires that are threatening Murphy's and Chinese Camp and every places down here in the foothills, there's going to be competition for those large air tankers. And this is what's interesting about big lightning busts is, like we said over and over, is that it's not always the lightning bust that's the problem. It's the depletion of critical resources like hand crews and aircraft that then allow other fires that we would have picked up, like the fire in Post Mountain. Like we might have picked that fire up in Post Mountain today had we not been trying to save Murphy's and Chinese Camp and anywhere else that had a fire that started near it this afternoon, because you would have had all those extra aerial resources. So it's great when there's no fires and you can have 5 large air tankers on your fire in the first 2 hours. It makes a huge difference, or 5 heavy helicopters. But you just don't always get that because these resources are shared across a large area. So this is, I think, the 6.5 fire or 5.6 or something, and this is burning by Chinese Camp. And you see like these fires kind of disappear behind clouds and then they pop back out again. As far as like knowing what's up to date, I've spent the last couple of hours getting ready and geeking out with Jamie, so I don't know exactly what's going on here, but we'll check out we'll do what everyone else does, and we'll go to watch duty or the intel. Oh, there's a fire in Butte, 5 miles west of Rock Creek. Well, that's interesting. We don't have a lot in Butte County that hasn't burned yet, and so when we get a new start outside of like the Dixie Fire, then it's not we're not always happy about that. So okay, so here we got the Cedar Fire and Post Mountain. I heard some people call it Compost Mountain. Okay, so Granite Fire here. We like that it's burning in the granite because it's, got less fuel. What we don't like is that if we look at our fire history, we got the Dixie Fire over here, and then we got this big chunk of Butte County. Like if you look at Butte County And here's Butte County, basically in this color here. If you look at what has burned in Butte County in the Bear Fire, the Camp Fire, and the Dixie Fire, like there's just this little kind of like third of the county that hasn't burned yet. So whenever we have a fire that gets established in this last piece of timber ground that's left in the county, like it's concerning. And it's concerning for the same reasons that these other fires are, is that we're going to have a lack of resources tomorrow, because all these fires that got started, we got a fire in Forbes-town, we got some fires down in the front country, we got little fires over here in Yuba foothills. Like, come tomorrow, like when the smoke clears out, like fires are going to get up and run, and fires that we don't even know are started yet are suddenly going to be 300 acres and taking a run. So that's the setup right now that we're looking at. And it's almost less about what these fires are doing today. That's what they're going to do in the next couple days if we have kind of continued kind of funky weather. So another thing that happened today that was really interesting was we had these crazy outflow winds. And I'll see if we can kind of, like on our radar scope here, we're looking at kind of earlier in the day here, we've got this lightning storm kind of moving through Butte County. But we had like some really weird things happening with outflow winds. Like, see this line here? As these storms kind of decay, as they run out of gas, they push out these lines of air. So like that. You see, like through there, that's an outflow wind basically from storms that were burning earlier in the day, or churning and burning. And even out here, like these are outflow boundaries of like air from the storms moving out, and those really wreak havoc on an existing fire. And there was a great live stream today by Daniel Swain, who he's almost certainly from another planet, and I'm glad that he's chosen to come live with us in this planet, because the dude is a great weather sleuth and explorer. So I would say if you're interested in this kind of stuff, if you want to see more of this stuff with someone who really knows what they're talking about, explaining it, like check out Daniel Swain's live stream from today, because it was happening during the fire. He's like me, he gets excited. He's like, oh, I'm not going to stop until this outflow boundary crashes into another one. So check that out. Anyway, lots of lightning continuing up until right now, going kind of like up through Berry Creek, Orville, etc. Concerning, yes. I will say that like one thing we got going for us in Butte County that other people haven't had to suffer through yet is that we've already burned our whole county up. So like I said, like if you look at our fire history, like we've got the Bear Fire out here that's like, fires can burn there, but they're not, and they can actually burn quite a ways and impact people, and not great, but it's not like burning up a forest that hasn't burned for 100 years. And out here, the Park Fire, like, oh, if it burns there, it's going to burn a bunch of grass and stuff. But like, there are ancillary benefits of having had your entire landscape just raked over the coals for the last 20 years or even 10 years, is that, hey, I'm not worried about lightning strikes out here in the Dixie Fire, because I want more fires to burn in the Dixie anyway, because it needs it. But so that's why I talk about like, hey, let's get better at figuring out which fires we need to put out and which ones we don't. And like I've said before, like the only time we really have the courage to do that is when we have to, because there's 30 different fires burning near homes. And maybe the Forest Service doesn't want to let this fire that's burning for the 4th time out here in Bucks Lake burn, but they can't do anything different because they don't have unlimited Type 1 helicopters and unlimited aircraft. So that's what we're looking at right now with our with this bust. It's the start of something. Could be bad. Some places it's going to be bad. Other places, it's going to be the same story of like, hey, it's burning in a burn. It's doing good. So what we're going to try to do with this bust is do a morning broadcast, explain to you where we think, what we see happening, which things are the most concern, and then we will also focus on what we think are the interesting stories about beneficial fire effects, places the fires are burning. We'll try to get out and see what we can of stuff that's actually on fire. If it's terrifying, it's all right. It's okay to be scared of fire. Like we're not trying to tell people don't be scared of fire. We're got to respect fire, and we got to learn to work with it, understand it. But these lightning busts often unfold over a period of time. You know, it might be a week. We might be going into something that's going to last a week. It might be going into something that's going to last for the rest of the summer. It's all so unpredictable, you know. Like last night, we were looking up here at the root fire, and it didn't do what we wanted. It didn't do what we expected at all. So I don't have good fresh intel on these fires that are churning and burning down here in the county. But I'd say check out Watch Duty. They've got great resources, and then come watch the lookout for kind of the context for Garnett. Garnett did some interesting things today, and we'll just briefly look at that. And then my brain hurts, and I got too fired up talking about marijuana to stay regulated. All right, so here's a let's see if we got anything newer from this fire. Holy smokes! Yeah, it did grew like a mofro. Let's color that one color. I ran into a buddy at the gym who he's like, man, you got to go easier on the incident management teams. Like, it is their job to stay optimistic, and he was a operations section chief. On a team, and it's true. Like, some of my heckling, I understand. Like, people don't always deserve to be heckled, but I can't always help myself. Okay, so here's what's happening today on our fire here. As of like 5 p.m., the fire, we've been using the tea kettle. We're here on the Garnett fire. We've been watching it. If you feel lost by our stuff, go back and watch some of our older stuff. But here's tea kettle. All of tea kettle is now burned. Tea kettle is an experimental forest that they were trying to do prescribed burn in before this happened for years and years. We're going to have people who are involved in that project probably come on. The project manager for the tea kettle burn is probably going to be on the program on Friday, and we'll talk about whatever they want to talk about. They're kind of going through it right now, so eager to hear what they have to say. So what happened today? We've been talking about how the fire was likely going to get well established into Dinky Creek here, and it's continued to become established in Dinky Creek. Looks like maybe they've kind of held a little bit of it on this ridge. They don't want it to get in this basin, but it's in this basin, and it's kind of continued to spread in here. So my buddy Bert Stalter, a couple days ago, he works on the Sierra, and he said, hey, you know what my worry is that these lightning storms are going to come through later in the week, and the outflow winds of that are usually downsloping. We've talked about this. And so that's what happened today. So I'm going to play a little bit of a time loop of that, because it did look pretty sinister on this fire today. Fuck rock. Yeah, let's do this one. We'll play the 12-hour loop here of what this fire did today. And so it started off here, by 10 a.m. just cranking. We're looking kind of back. This is the tea kettle area burning, and then over here is kind of the fire in Dinky Creek. Then the storms moved in earnest, and it got just really kind of end of the world dark and nasty here. But through the day, it's been cranking. So that's Buck Rock, and here's kind of another view from Delilah Lookout. Anytime you see a fire like busting up a big pyrocumulus cap at 8 in the morning, you know it's going to be a long day. So here's the fire burning in Dinky Creek, and just watch as the storms go through the day. Bam, it lays over, it starts really pushing. This whole fire starts, just see that flow coming from east to west? That's outflow winds from these big convective activity affecting the fire. So, okay, here at 1 in the afternoon, the fire's kind of moving upslope like it would. And then these thunderstorms are big and dark and crazy. And then they kind of, wow, look at that. That is just like freaking weather porn there. And then bam, watch, the whole fire leans over. So like at 3 o'clock, right on the dot, the whole fire just is just bam, headed west with those outflows. So Bert spent his whole career working in the Sierra Nevada, and dude's a treasure And I appreciate like people like him that like give us these tips and help us teach you these lessons, because they've got a whole lifetime of experience with, like, they know. They're like, oh, thunderstorm, strong outflow winds, 3 in the afternoon. It's like, all right, 14:59 hours, Bert's on it. So that's what happened. And so, and like, as we were saying last night, you know, I was kind of heckling the briefings just because they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna blah blah blah, pick it up. We're gonna pick it up at the road, and it's like, okay, well, here's the road we're talking about, and they've been doing a lot of prep, etc. And maybe they can get some firing done tonight, and they can pick it up. But like, I'm definitely not gonna hold it against them if they can't, because like, look at all these spots everywhere. Like, so that's what I was asking for in my kind of smart ass heckling little social media post about like, don't believe anyone who tells you a happy, optimistic outlook when a fire like looks like this every afternoon for a week. Like, we just want the teams to like, you know, I got a comment on LinkedIn from a guy who was a former bigwig with the Forest Service, and he said, I'm curious if you have any experience as a firefighter. Do you have any idea of the mental toll losing these fires takes on us, and how it's contributing to a very high death rate by suicide and wildland firefighters who bust our asses to fight the fires, to try to hold them where we need to, and hope we don't lose them? It hits us hard. When homes are lost and civilians are killed, it takes another piece of us. Your harsh attitudes to all working hard on the ground, it contributes to the mental health decline. So be mindful of your responsibilities. Wildland firefighters didn't sign up to fail, to see the communities where they live burned down, to spend months away from their loved ones fighting the same fire. None of us wake up and start to shift the intention of misleading the public on where the fires we hope will be contained. When that plan fails, there's another plan in place, and another plan behind that. Because welcome to the changing conditions of climate, lack of land management, exploding population with no sideboards in controlling the development of their communities. All right. So yeah, my response to that is, wildland firefighters didn't sign up to fail. But the landscape is set up for that, and we know that. Like, after watching Dixie, watching Caliber, watching this fire, we know that this fire is not stoppable. So I think when you have an incident command team saying, like, in a briefing to the public, like, we're going to try to hold it here, we're going to try to, like, we're going to pick it up here, we're really confident, it projects this kind of unrealistic expectation to the public. And it projects an unrealistic expectation to the people working on that team that, what, you couldn't pick it up at the road? Like, so what I'm asking for is like, hey, let's just be more transparent with the public and say like, hey, based on our experience, and these guys know, these guys have a whole experience, a whole lifetime working on fire. Like, they know that the fire is going to burn till the wind. Like, let's normalize being real. Let's normalize saying like, hey, look, we know we're not going to hold this road. We're going to go ahead and like invest some effort in the road in case it rains, or in case, you know, we get some miracle weather that changes and the fire lays down, and then we'll be ready for it. But let's kind of like lead the briefing with saying like, hey, we know this fire, like, we're pretty sure this fire is going to burn like all the way to Shaver Lake. And then we're going to do everything we can to keep that from happening. And if we do, that's great. But let's just go into the expectation of knowing that like, hey, this fire has got all the ingredients it needs to burn another 50,000 acres. And then, you know, I just don't see how you can, yeah. But I don't feel like I'm causing firefighters to commit suicide by making them feel like a failure. I feel like, if anything, we need to normalize losing and let people know that, hey, we lose sometimes, and here's why. We lose because you're giving us fights that aren't fightable. We lose because the bureaucracy of getting prescribed fires done makes it impossible. We lose because the agency doesn't prioritize fuels treatment. We lose because the counties don't prioritize fire safety by not letting people build in the middle of a slope like Trinity Pines. So anyway, that my little heckling of the team and saying that like, watch out, number 19 is that the team is drinking happy juice. That's my creative. That's me trying to like push forward this conversation in a kind of goofy way. So blah blah blah. Let's just keep it honest. Draw a bigger box. I am sarcastic. I like this term. Someone says feels like a lot of people are emotionally sunburned. All right, people. Well, that's Garnett. Sad to see this whole area burn. It's hard to sugarcoat, like, you know, like talking with Jamie about like fire effects and like hope and like that fire revitalizes the landscape and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you can say a lot of that, and it is interesting, like 5 years after a big fire, to go in there and see all the life. But it also sucks seeing all these big dead trees and knowing that we kind of really messed up and aren't going to get another chance to have old growth in a lot of places. And that a lot of places it's just not, we're not, it sucks to know that that's coming for other places like Tea Kettle. All right. So on that, I don't know what else we got to discuss. Seems like enough for one night. Anyway, M. Stewart, I'm sorry I triggered you with my sarcasm, but I'm hoping that it drives a conversation. Mount Shasta, don't know what's going to happen. The thing to look forward to, like by Saturday, we're going to have really solid humidity recovery, say in Mount Shasta area. Way cooler temps, moisture during the day, less windy. Actually, not much less windy. So we kind of just have to ride out this current wave of weather chaos. It's pretty rare to have these like big dry lightning storms. I don't ever really remember, like, not since '99 have I seen a big lightning bust in the first week of September. So if you live in Trinity Pines, I hope they put the fire out. I don't want y'all to burn up. I promise. I just want all the garbage to be gone. And blah, blah, blah. Someone said, well, why don't you come clean it up yourself? And it's like, well, looks like a lot of work. All right, last view of fire here on the Root Fire, Castle Crags, just kind of smoking away. If nothing else, these fires are great for, like, I bet you there's a lot of people in Mount Shasta today that were out cutting their brush, raking their pine needles. It's a good reminder that like stuff like this can happen. I stayed up late last night updating some of our recent reporting. So feel free to check out the Lookout. We got our fall tool raffle going on. We got 4 different raffles for a really nice Japanese pruning saw. Here's a tool that I made, and I need to explain it probably to people. This is a picaroon. It's for cutting firewood. You whack it into your round of firewood and can put the round on your stump without bending over. You can use it to pull the wood out of the back of your truck. After you split your wood, you can whack this into it, and then you just kind of unhook it. You whack it in there, move your log, and unhook it. So a picaroon and an old axe and a logger's tape and a pair of gloves is another prize. We've got a nice Fano pole saw here. Cat not included. This is made in Chico. It's got a nice, like, 40-inch handle, so you can reach up and prune like up to like 10 feet if you're tall enough. Along with this guy from Westwood, Greg Heidenreich, gave me a bunch of nice stuff to raffle, so including a nice pocket knife. And then the last one is a nice Corona razor sharp pruning saw, a nice pair of loppers or pruners, and some gloves. So you can buy tickets, $5 a piece, on the Lookout, and that's gonna help pay for my kids' braces. And also we got over here the Lookout merch, hats and stickers, mugs made by my wife, and a new shirt, gray one. Anyway, I've been advised by my wife not to ask for money on every program, so I won't. And back to the music, and right on, people.